No, seriously, this guy's about to win the NBA MVP. Weaknesses: an average athlete lacking great speed and leaping ability. Foot speed is a big liability. He may struggle to stay in front of NBA athletes at the center position, needs to improve as a post player, gain strength, and develop a repertoire of back-to-the-basket moves. That could have been an evaluation of me as a basketball player right now, not a future MVP. And by the way, the evaluation wasn't wrong, at the time at least. In this video, I'm going to be going through the crazy NBA career of Nikola Jokic, whose improbable journey has taken him from undrafted projections to NBA MVP. But really quickly, I like to remind people before we get started, consider subscribing to the channel. I upload NBA stuff every single day on this channel. It's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube, so consider subscribing. If you're new here, by the way, what's up? My name is Tucker. If you do enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like rating on it. It helps me out, helps get the video out to more people on YouTube. And if you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, then be sure to check the Linktree link down in the description below to do so. With all those things said, let's talk about Nikola Jokic. So at the time of the 2014 NBA draft, we were all kind of focused on the Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker debate at the top, where Kansas center Joel Embiid was going to end up, and also higher upside guys like Noah Vonleh and Aaron Gordon that were going to be drafted early on in the 2014 NBA draft. And we're kind of focused on pretty much anybody other than Nikola Jokic. And for good reason. He was ranked behind NBA studs like Jarnell Stokes, Cameron Bairstone, CJ Fair, Corey Jefferson, Ronald Roberts, DeAndre Kane, and Patrick Young, among many, many others. And at the time, he was seen as like a potentially solid NBA role player, assuming that he could make up for his below average athleticism, get in better shape, and develop his skills. You know, kind of every single thing you could possibly need to improve as a basketball player. And as it turns out, we were all so wrong, because Nikola Jokic has become one of the most devastating offensive players in the entire league. From a guy that they didn't know if he had the proper post skills to really develop into a premier scorer, into one of the better, more efficient guys and a dominant post presence in the league. From a guy that we thought we were going to have to beg to continue to take shots in the league, has continued to grow into an aggressive offensive player, and of course, one of the most instinctual, best passers in the entire league, potentially in league history. The amount of crazy passes that Nikola Jokic makes on a consistent basis every single night puts him in a top tier of passers, not only in the league right now, but in league history as well. It cannot be overstated how good of a player Nikola Jokic has become compared to where he was projected to be drafted at the time of the 2014 draft. And all this begs the question, how did we get here? How did Nikola Jokic go from a guy that was projected to be undrafted, ends up going in the second round, to a historic, presumably, MVP, assuming he wins it here in a couple of weeks? And the reason I say historic is because we've never had an NBA MVP that was drafted in the 40s. We've never had an NBA MVP that was drafted in the second round. And the latest drafted NBA MVPs in league history are Steve Nash and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who both went 15. Nikola Jokic went 41st in the 2014 NBA draft. This would be a truly historic rise for a draft prospect, and it's worth asking how in the world we got here. Well, interestingly, when you go back and look at that 2014 draft, okay, Denver also wasn't really sure that they were all that excited about Nikola Jokic. It's very clear by the draft evaluations at the time that he was going to be a project player. He was going to be someone that was going to need to develop, potentially had some offensive skills, but the Nuggets went out and got a different international big man in the exact same draft class in which they selected Nikola Jokic. They got Jusuf Nurkic 16th overall in that exact same class, and he made an all-rookie team the year before Jokic got there. It took Jokic a year to come over to Denver. Nurkic, as a rookie, made an all-rookie team, and he looked like a solid player. And for a while, there was a conversation around whether it should be Jusuf Nurkic's team at the center spot or Nikola Jokic's. And the next year, Jokic shows up, and he also makes an all-rookie team. And they're kind of trying to figure out, what do we do here? Statistically, Jokic is better. Nurkic kind of fits a more traditional role as a center. And there were real conversations had at the time about who they should keep. Should they keep the more bruising Nurkic or try and build a lot of things around Nikola Jokic? Because at the time, he was able to do a lot of the passing stuff and some scoring stuff that made him look really intriguing, but defensively, he was an absolute disaster. So it was a real question mark for a while there. They went back and forth. They tried to play them both together, but ultimately, they made the decision intelligently to go ahead and move Jusuf Nurkic. They traded him just 2.5 years into his career after being the 16th overall pick, after being a relatively highly drafted player, in favor of the former 41st overall pick in Nikola Jokic, and pretty much immediately it became clear that that was the right choice. Here are some stat lines that Jokic put up pretty much immediately after the Nurkic trade. 29, 18, and 7, 14, 14, and 17, 11, 15, and 11, 29, 13, and 14, and 30, 15, and 17. It became clear. I remember watching it. Became clear how special Jokic could potentially be as an NBA player. There were issues defensively. We didn't know if he had the athleticism. It really felt like you had to build a lot of things around Jokic, right? But almost immediately became clear for a Nuggets team that at the time was not good, by the way. This was not a playoff team. This was not a team that people really thought had a ton of upside, and he basically turned the entire franchise around. They go out and they get Jamal Murray later on in the draft, and they build these other players around Jokic, but it all began with him. It all began with the choice that they made to keep him, a choice that, quite frankly, not a lot of NBA teams would have made because they were admitting a mistake. They were admitting that Jusuf Nurkic was not the guy they should have selected 16th overall after getting Jokic 41st. They were admitting that, yes, they've done a good job of developing Jokic, and he became a much better player than they ever thought that he would be. But again, it's a big deal for a franchise to admit a mistake on that level, even though ultimately ends up being a fantastic thing for them to get a guy that's going to end up winning the MVP this year, in my opinion, at 41st overall. So this became one of the most improbable journeys of any NBA player that I can remember. And now, as I said, Jokic is a completely devastating offensive post president. The Nuggets play basketball in a completely different way than pretty much every other team in the league. Jokic is the focal point of everything. If he posts up, he's going to score at an above average rate. If you double him on a post up, he's going to score at an above average rate. He's an incredible passer. He can shoot from the outside as well, and the aggressiveness is there now as well. There were multiple people calling this guy out and saying, "You are a great offensive player. Why are you not being more aggressive? Why is there not more volume within your shot selection?" And this year he has fixed that as well, to the point where if you made a ranking of like guys you want to build your team around moving forward, Jokic is probably near, if not at the top of that list. And he has become, and I mean this in every sense of the word, center Steve Nash. Here's what I mean by that. It's not just the passing. It's not just the fact that he makes guys around him better. I would actively look in free agency for role players that have played alongside Jokic. I would actively look to bring in players that have played with this guy, because from the minute they get there, he makes them better players. Michael Porter Jr. this year has made plays that he never made in the past, and he's seeing the floor in different ways than he ever did before, because of playing with Jokic, because of how he understands spacing, because of the way that he can pass the basketball. And that level of elevation is uncommon for any NBA player outside of typically point guards, but specifically for a big guy. He is truly the most unique offensive focal point in the entire league, and ultimately one of the most devastating, as I said, in my opinion, the MVP of the league this year. And to go from 41st overall, not just to go out there and get some minutes and to score some points, but to develop from a 10 per game, 15, 20 point per game score, to be someone that can be one of the better facilitators in the league, and to prove that to your franchise. It's not something you really consider when you bring in someone that's the 41st pick and is a big guy. You don't really sit there and think, it'd be cool if we made our entire offense about this guy. If we realized that he was one of the best passers in the entire league despite being 7 feet tall, that would be an interesting concept. It's not something that comes to mind, so he had to force that to come to mind. And I can't say how much I respect the game and the drive and the development of Jokic. And ultimately, it's pretty clear why nobody wanted him at the time of the draft, right? You look and it's just another international guy that's too slow, that's got some skills, can shoot a little bit, can pass a little bit, but he's out of shape and he's lazy. And it's easy to explain away all the negative things about Jokic. But as soon as he got to the league, as soon as he started, being around an environment that really allowed him to develop his skills, he took advantage of it, took full advantage. And I think you could argue that as we look forward and look at the rest of NBA history here moving forward, this might be the most unlikely story of any player that's ever been drafted. We've had undrafted guys have a ton of success. We've had guys come from crazy circumstances to be really good NBA players. I'm not sure we've ever had a situation like this, or ever will have a situation like this, at least not for a really long time, for a guy to be projected to be undrafted, ranked behind those guys that I mentioned. On NBA Draft.net, he was ranked as the 61st best player in the 2014 class itself, not within a high school class, not within, a handful of draft classes, 61st in one individual draft class. And then to go from that to the most valuable player in the entire league is an absolutely ridiculous ascent. The story makes no sense, and that is exactly why I wanted to cover it in today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comment section below if there are other players you'd like for me to cover in this manner. You kind of go back and look at their careers, what eventually got them there. Let me know down in the comment section below. With all those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a like rating on it. You can check out more videos from me. The box is on screen. You can hang out with me at the various socials and the links we link down in the description below as well. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.